Let's face it, you need the best jungle builds right now to climb for the end of Season 14, but also because none of this is really gonna change to start your placements in Season 15. Fortunately, right here, right now, you have the best tech. Pick up on a champion, don't think, and go and win. First up, we have Virkayu. Remember, for Virkayu, people like to go your standard builds, always have done. But back in the day, his base healing was so insane, they lowered that, scaled it with some more AD, and then later on decided, you know, why don't we add a crit modifier? Which means there is a build going around with an obscenely good win rate, I'm sure you've heard of it, the Crit Virkayu build. And that's because the R scales with crit, his Q stab also has a crit scaler, and you do a lot of damage in a burst. Now the drawback here is item path is very expensive, so you have to be a good Virkayu, proactive jungler, understand where those pressure points lie on the map, and actually get fed. You're not chilling, relaxing, maxing, all cool, waiting to get your Sundered Sky and your Sterak's gauge and such things. You're very much snowballing like a Rengar. Now the default build here, and we've got two of them, don't worry, the spicier one will be second, Trinity Collector Shield Bow. I know a lot of you have seen this, but you have to understand this one is the intermediate point, right? We have our regular builds, and then we have the one-shot assassin build. This is in the middle. It has a lot more HP early, you get the classic sheen spike that everybody's always been in love with over the years, and it gives you enough attack speed and haste for those early fights. Then you go into your collector build, and that's where things get interesting, right? Because you got that semi-execute at the end, and you've got a missing HP scaling ultimate that also scales on the crit you have in your itemization. Equals people gonna die. As you would have seen with this, we then go Shield Bow, and obviously you can finish off with an IE and such things. The rune page for this, as I would have put up, is Conqueror, but let's transition to the actual build I want to show you. Hail of Blades Collector Rush. You really need a lot of cash money to make this work because you're gonna go Shield Bow and IE second, or IE and then Shield Bow. Typically, it depends on your snowball component here. It's very expensive, your recipes are expensive, and you will be way more squishy, so it's for those Virkayus that actually understand positioning and in and out gameplay. But your damage will truly be much higher. In this particular case, with Trinity and Conqueror and Hail of Blades, that's fine, but this build we want Hail of Blades, it works the best. It gives you that full-on burst proc, extra attack speed, and also when you're gonna lead into this crit build to do more damage, such things as Eyeball Collector do typically help, you know, because you're getting way more damage on each auto attack that you do. If you're watching this in Season 15, then you're gonna be replacing that with whatever vision toggle you like in that row. But the Hail of Blades plus Treasure Hunter will be absolutely the best. Now, as I said, you need to be a good jungler in order to make this work and have good mechanics and good positioning. And for that, Kaido.gg is having mega sales for the end of the season. Go ahead and get the courses and information and tips you need to reach those peaks and set yourself up for Season 15 success. Also, everything will have Season 15 updates coming as soon as possible at the start of the year. And if you need a new practice tool to get your mechanics good and juicy, Skill Gap is the one to go to. Links for both of these will be in the description below. Improve and get better with the only two things you need as a jungler to reach your peaks as fast as possible. Okay, now we have AD Udyr. I've mentioned this a little bit in the best junglers. I've been coaching a guy that's been running fully entries tank, and I said to him, listen, you know what? You are stuck. He said, yes. I said, let's solve it. Your playstyle and the things you need, they would be better served going AD. He gave me doubts and he jumped up 1,000 LP. So this has a completely different playstyle compared to the normal Udyr. You rely way more on applying the burst of damage and then walking back and then doing the damage again. Well, you know, in and out gameplay, stuff we always talk about. Here we're gonna max Q to gain the extra attack speed and max HP damage from the spell, but we also want to unlock that awakening Q because that is where that max HP and Q burst comes from. It is nutty, it's unnatural, it was broken years ago with Prowler's Claw itemization, it's broken again now. You are way squishier though with this build. You can't just run in and expect to do Udyr things. You're changing the way you play the game. Both Stride and Trinity are great rush items. I have put your Trinity Force because I prefer that. But that means it's better to go with, of course, the Sterak second, then perhaps going with the Shojin second if you're going the Stride Breaker. So there's two variations there, yes? I'll put them both on your screen so you don't get confused. But essentially, Stride into Shojin, thumbs up, mega good. If you want to go Trinity Force, then we're going to go into the Steraks. PTA is obviously miles better than Conqueror in this particular regard as well, because you want the burst proc from that rune to amplify everything you have and to really unload in a moment. You don't really need those Conqueror drawn out team fights anymore. For the secondary page, you have two options here, either Celerity Water Walking, you can go Nimbus if you want, or you can go Booties and Cosmic Insight, but then I will assume you have no personality and you have zero imagination, so we've put the Sorcery page here second. Overall, the build is strong. You can then flex into tankier stuff later on. You can think about a Black Cleaver. I know a lot of people like to do that with these Stridebreaker Shojin builds. However, please, in the name of all that is holy, do not play him like a full tank Udyr. Play him like an actual fighter bruiser. use split push waves, do the classical Udyr thing where you're taking turrets, they rotate up, you run away. If someone's out of position, hit your flash, get your stun, hit them with an awakened Q. Really look to make sure that you don't actually have to have those 5v5 teamfights. I mean, if you need to, your target selection is important, but ideally we're avoiding that. We're snowballing with the same kind of farming tempo, but with a lot more of an assassin game style. And for the end of season and start of season, the Viego crit, the AD Udyr, you need these kind of things to solo carry the corpses on your team across the finish line. Also, don't forget high turret damage, please. Now for Kha'Zix here, we have mainly a high elo build, but I'm gonna let you in on a secret here. Anyone who's below Master Plus, you can still do it as well. That's right. You know why? Because it's not a new build per se, but it works in the grand scheme of the meta. The reason why it works is because Umbral Glaive pairs very well with Zombie Ward, a classical combination if you will, but on top of that, you get the item relatively quickly because 1, it's cheap, and 2, you're running Treasure Hunter. However, this allows you to stack, you clear the vision very quickly, and obviously listen, it's better on high elo because people ward more. However, you're still gonna get at least a couple wards in lower MMR ranges, mostly because people forget to swap out their scanners, so incidentally, it actually ends up working anyway. Secondly, we like to go the Ghost Blade, that's obviously really classic. Usual lethality build path for him, movement speed active, getting in and out of team fights, high stats, we enjoy. Ultimately, after this though, you want to go with the Cyrillus Grudge or the Serpent's Fang. You have better vision control around the map, you can make Nidalees very sad, but most importantly, if you are someone like me who enjoys having the highest vision score as a minigame every game you play, then that fantasy can be satiated with this build path. And yes, you would have noticed I put the Serpent's Fang third here because I did cover this play on the gameplay channel. I will leave a link to his game style so you can see how it's done in the link in the description below. And the Serpent's Fang is really great in this meta when there's a lot of shielding going about. However, at the same time, if there is not really that value there, just go the Cyrillus Grudge, and then the Serpent's Fang gives you great stats for a great price, even if there is minimal shielding against you. Also, he likes to run it basically every single game, and he's in high elo challenger, and that's not a claim to authority, it's just the guy's had success with it, and I've seen a lot of people running the Serpent's Fang tech anyway. Playstyle wise, nothing else really changes. You're still looking for backline access, you are still looking to jump in front of people's faces early on, you want to snowball, you don't want to be AFK farming, we're not rushing Profane Hydra and chilling, you know, like the old days. We're actually looking to get on the map and get active. Remember, assassins scale way more with golden experience than any other class. You can take over games, so just be efficient with looking for those ganks, those invades, those counter ganks, and then obviously sequence in between. Make sure you are keeping a high level of all those things. This build will allow you better vision control to do exactly that. And then you're spiking with obviously really affordable items with great utility and a lot of damage, and your Dark Harvest is scaling beautifully as it always does. Now, I know a lot of people don't value Echo as a jungler. They're wrong. Echo is an amazing champion for solo carrying games and controlling the narrative of victory. Also, you usually do it with Dark Harvest. What if though? You could do it with Hail of Blades. Don't worry, I got a secondary rune set for you as well if you don't like this one. The reason why we like to take Hail of Blades over Dark Harvest, I don't like it, it's not my thing, but I know a lot of people do enjoy the feel more so. Why? Because after you E, you can proc your passive way faster, which potentially makes you maneuver the fights and duels a lot better. Remember, you want to get that passive off so you have higher movement speed, that built-in phase rush, to actually navigate whatever challenges might be arising in front of you. What it does is it can give you that guaranteed utility and damage and DPS in a fight rather than simply waiting for the end of the fight to get maybe a Dark Harvest stack or maybe not. Now, Echo is one of the best counter jungling and counter ganking champions in the game because of the angles he can use, the beautiful flanks with his W 2.25 second stun. I like to always mention that because I think people forget hitting W is astronomically huge in these stages of the games. I mean, when Echo was literally trash in the jungle for years, for 2 years he was terrible. How did Riot fix it? Well, they gave him better damage bonus to monsters, and they increased his stun to what it is now. Now, here is the interesting thing. Some people like to pair Hail of Blades with Absolute Focus and Water Walking, and some with Cosmic and Boots. Again, pick which one you want to roll with, but only one says you have a personality. Remember, the main tree doesn't change at all? The build paths don't change at all. Turrets and one-shots are all there for you. The one thing I will say that I personally have always enjoyed on Echo, even back in the day when it was more normal, is instead of Hail of Blades, we're going Electrocute. So imagine this page on your screen now with Electrocute instead. In fact, you know what? I won't be lazy, I'll give you the animation. Look at it, it's beautiful. Everything else stays the same. Here, I do love the Absolute Focus gathering the storm for the majority of your games. People are going to play safe, they're not always going to play hyper-aggressive, and they're basically going to struggle to try and win games because they don't want to lose by making mistakes. That's when these builds come in. You just take over, you take control. And Echo, like with Hail of Blades, the Electrocute gives you a guaranteed proc of damage, a guaranteed thing that you can use that allows you to win games. The amount of times I've had to explain to people that the guaranteed damage from Electrocute that gives you a kill or a huge advantage in terms of basing and the HP war advantage over enemy junglers and laners, it's insane over the past 5 to 6 years. Don't always play to scale and exist later. Play for the now, get your lead, control the narrative, and the game. That's it. I'll make a video on that for you next week. Right, it's Warwick time, and that's because I have to save these champions, my champions, over the many years I've played them, from the masses picking really boring stuff that just doesn't actually work that well. Warwick is a really diverse champion, so yes, you can go Tiamat, Titanic, into Blade of the Rune King, into tank. Yes, you can obviously go Stridebreaker into Blade as well, but right here is the build of dreams, because Warwick and Volibear are the two things that scale better than almost anything else with a Tiamat Sheen combo. I've been running it on them for years and have pushed it for years. And because they nerfed the cooldown on Warwick's ability, the Q, we need Ionian boots. So let's go with something interesting. Russia Titanic is the best item on him. Huge chomps, huge damage, huge clears. Then you're gonna go into the Trinity Force for maximum DPS chompage. This is a really great build, but it does have its weaknesses against those fights where maybe you want a bit of lifesteal and they go on a bit longer. With the Bite here, you really want to get into those fights. You're going to do a lot of burst damage up front, and at the end, the Sheen plus a Tiamat proc is really nutty, and the attack speed and the HP obviously scale beautifully with the item as well. The same logic then, as you can see here, we go with the Sterex third, nothing wrong with that. You can obviously go into your full tank afterwards as well. And finally, if you are really snowballing a game and you want to end quickly and you really just have so much gold it's filthy, you can go in with the Terminus, although I like to save it for the end or a Jack Show or GA or something like that, and prefer to go more with the Spirit Visage and tank itemization in the 4th and 5th slot. Obviously, Boots takes the other one. A little bit of flexibility there. You play it as you see it, but the idea is Titanic plus Trinity Force. Obviously, if the game does demand the Blade of the Rune King, so you've gone Titanic into the Blade of the Rune King, and you're saying, well, Virkayu, the Sheen proc, if it's so goated, what can I do? My friend, simply go Iceborne Gauntlet third, thumbs up emoji, and then you can go with the Spirit Visage fourth, and all of a sudden, you've got the Sheen proc, you've got the tankiness, you've got the drain tank you want, and you're 1v9 all the fights you want to. Rune pages, as always, the same up front with the lethal tempo and stuff like this, but as you'll see, if you know me from my Volibear days and my Warwick days way back when, I've always pushed the Eyeball Ultimate Hunter as an amazing piece of technology for these champions. Warwick is a champion that people run around a bit like headless chicken sometimes. However, it's good to think of him like someone who plays around his ultimate. If you have a great lead and you can pressure people out, that's fantastic. If you can control camps, get objectives while doing that, even better. What's even better than that is not having to force fights until you have that ultimate available, and obviously it being more available anyway during the skirmishes. If you want to rotate and run around, yeah, we can do that as well. And now to finish off, we need to go to something very simple, something very fundamental, but I want you to understand why I'm talking about it, and for the end of the section, I will explain it. Remember, you have your standard builds and runes. You're gonna go the Conqueror, the Ultimate Hunter, Drain Tank Existence. Yeah, he's so exciting. Most people here remember when he was just an Aftershock Giga Juggler, shooting out full tank moments, but now building all tank on him is actually terrible. I mean, there's a 47%, 48% win rate on Sunfire Rush, and a 53% win rate in Leandry. So if you needed help making that decision and you weren't very good at numbers, I'm here to tell you that one of those numbers is better than the other, and it's the number on Leandry's. You see, there's a lot of talk about the weirdness of the builds you can go. The weird, stupid builds you see everyone running after someone does it and has one game of success. Look at your champion that you're playing now, whether it's a Mumu, whether it's something else. Just maximize the win rate you have with the itemizations that are showing results at a large volume. Take the best and standard runes like with the Mumu here and go with your Leandries into tank your Sunfire, then your Abyssal Mask, then your Thormail, your Jack Show. Keep it simple. You don't always need the fancy builds like on the rest of the champions in this video to actually carry you in a climb. What these builds are for and who these builds are for are people who have an understanding with their champions and with how they want to jungle. So if you play some of the champions here in this video and you are wanting to 1v9 at the end of the season or at the start of season 15 to control as much of the possibility for the corpses, as I said, on your team to not hold you back, then these will work. But if your champion doesn't have something spicy, don't look it up for the sake of it. Go with what works, go with what's standard, and use your jungling knowledge to suppress all and destroy all. And for that, I made a video this week talking exactly about that. I would really advise watching that right now and then going into your next game.